Good morning, all, and welcome to Namakwa Unitarian Universalist Congregation. And happy Easter. This is a Come As You Are congregation. No matter who you are, what your faith, or who you love, you are welcome here. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to any of our first or second time visitors. We have anyone here for their first or second, maybe third time today?
Great.
We're really glad you could show up and join us today. And we'd love to stay connected, so feel free to sign up for our communications back at the main entrance. We'd like to acknowledge today that the land we are on is the traditional and ancestral homeland of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute nations and peoples. We recognize and honor the indigenous people as original stewards of this land and vow to reconcile the deep wounds that still shape our world today. Yeah, come on in. The Namakwa Unitarian Universalist Congregation fosters a beloved community that celebrates diversity, strives for peace and justice, acts mindfully for the good of the planet, and inspires spiritual growth through a free and loving search for truth and meaning. Just a couple of quick announcements. Next Sunday, a worship service on the 16th is going to be religious about recycling and other spiritual practices. So it's just in time for our Earth Day. We have worship associates Kathy Hartman and Susan Moody. They will be talking with us about recycling and other environmental practices we can engage in. These efforts may not save the planet, as the planet itself will do just fine, but our small contributions to the work of moderating climate change can help make a difference and get noticed to maybe make some change among the people in the world. And our other announcement for right now is that we are doing an auction for this year. We're having a return of auction. We will be holding our auction at the Chilson on June 24th, and you all can expect much more information and requests for donations and everything else in the weeks to come. We wanted to make sure it's on everyone's radar that we are returning the auction this year.
Awesome. Well, I want to say good morning and happy Easter, happy Passover, happy Ramadan, happy spring, and happy Buddha's birthday. There we go. All of those things are converging today. So it's a lot, I know. Amazing. So cool. And I want to thank all the people that are involved in helping create the worship service this morning. I especially want to thank Clay Roper, who this is his debut as a worship associate. So glad to have you with us, Clay. Thank you. And our music, we have our choir here today. Woohoo! And Ryan as our music director, and Tam is running things upstairs. Thank you, Tam, for everything. And our ushers, we have Brian and Terry. No? Oh, Brian and Sharon, thank you very much for being our ushers. It takes a lot to make a Sunday morning happen, and it's important to acknowledge everyone. And especially you. Thank you for being here. Let's have some fun, shall we? So, to start off our fun, we're going to share with you a reading called How to Survive the Apocalypse. By Unitarian Universalist minister Sean Parker Dennison. First, learn to listen, not only for enemies around corners in hidden places, but for the faint footsteps of hope and the whisper of resistance. Hone your skills and aim your heart toward kindness and stockpile second chances.
Under the weight of destruction, we will need the strong shelter of forgiveness and the deeper wells that give the sweet water of welcome. We have a place for you.
We have a place for you. And when the world ends, We must not add destruction to destruction, not accept a beggar's bargain to fight death for death.
In order to survive the apocalypse,
Any apocalypse at all,
we have to give up the counterfeit currency of self-sufficiency,
the mistaken addiction to competition,
the lie that the last to die has somehow survived.
So, as we come together to join in preventing the apocalypse, I invite you to join with me in sharing our congregational affirmation. So let us acknowledge again, as we do every week, that we are promise making, promise breaking, and promise remaking people through the covenant that we make with one another.
We are called not to be perfect, but to be faithful to each other. Please join me as we speak our covenant together as a reminder of the promises we make in this gathered community.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service its call. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And now, in the spirit of preventing the apocalypse, and in the spirit of this covenant, I invite you to turn to those around you and greet them good morning and happy Easter.
Good morning.
Well, I happen to have a story that some of you may know, but I would like to invite anyone of any age that considers themselves a child, 6 months to 99 years, come on up if you want to. I like to have company up here. Y'all don't mind if I sit down, do you? Come sit with me if you'd like. Oh, good. Thank you. See? See? Yeah, thank you. Good to see you, Ocean. Good. Come on up. Yeah, come on up. Here. Oh, I love that dress. So cute. You guys look so pretty today. Good. Hey, guys. Glad you're here. Awesome. Y'all are ready to make that archway, right? Okay. So this is the story of the Good Samaritan. Do you know that story? Have you ever heard that? Have you ever heard the story of the Good Samaritan? Oh, hi, guys. Hey, how's it going? Come on up. Good to see you. All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good to see you again. Well, I tell you what. Can I ask you a question? Has anybody ever been mean to you? Has anybody ever been mean to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you like it very much when people are mean to you?
No.
Anybody here like it when some? No, I didn't think so. And if you've had a really bad day, or maybe you've fallen and gotten hurt, do you want somebody to come and help you when that happens?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I know. Yeah. So one day, this is a story from the Bible, okay? And it's called The Good Samaritan. And it's a story that Jesus tells. And Jesus taught about how to be a good person. Anybody want to be a good person? Well, I'd like to be a good person. Yeah. Yeah, me too. So one day, a guy came up to Jesus and he said, "What do I need to do in order to live forever or get into heaven?" Now, some of you may have never heard of something called heaven. Have you ever heard of heaven? Some of you have? Yeah, some people think that heaven is something that happens when you die. And some of us think that heaven is something that we have, that we create in the here and now on the world today while we're alive. So he wants to get into heaven or become enlightened. And Jesus asked him what the laws of the 10 Commandments said. And the lawyer said, "You shall love God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength, and your neighbor as yourself." And Jesus said, "Right." Then the lawyer asked, "But teacher, who is my neighbor? In other words, who do I have to treat lovingly?" Oh. Who is it that I have to be nice to? And this is the story that Jesus told that man, that one day there was a man walking on a lonely stretch of road on his way to a place from Jerusalem to Jericho. And suddenly, a whole bunch of bad guys, a bunch of gang of thieves jumped out and they tackled him and they took his money and they kind of beat him up. That's not very nice, is it? No, I wouldn't want that to happen. And he was so beat up that he couldn't get up and walk. He was in pretty bad shape. So he was just laying on the side of the road, waiting for somebody to come along and help him. And after a while, a priest came along. And a priest is somebody from the church of the time, the temple. And he saw the man lying there, but he thought, "Oh, he looks dirty. You know, if I touch this guy, he's going to get me all dirty. Ooh, I'll get the willies, you know. And then I'll have to go purify myself, and it's just too much of a hassle." So he walked by. And a long time passes, and another man comes by, and he too saw the wounded man, and he decided that no, he wasn't going to help him either, because once again, it was just, he wanted to, but it was just too much of a hassle. He was late. He needed to get going. And then a much longer time passes, and this guy on a donkey comes by. And this guy was called a Samaritan, okay? A Samaritan. And he was from the town where Samaritans live, and they were enemies of the guy that got beat up. They were enemies. Huh. Wow. So can you think for a moment of somebody you really do not like? Anybody have anybody in mind? No? Okay. I'm glad you don't have anybody in mind. That's great. That's good. But I'm guessing some of us adults might be able to think of somebody we really, really do not like. Okay. And that's the person who came by. That's the person who came by. And this man who we really did not like at all and considered our enemy, he stopped. And he saw how bad of shape this guy was in. He said, I'm going to help you. And he got him some water, and he took care of him, and he cleaned all of his wounds. And then he took him to a hotel, an inn. He took him to a hotel, an inn, where he could be taken care of and nursed back to health again. Wow, that's pretty amazing, huh? I want enemies like that. Right. So when Jesus finished telling this story, that's okay, come on over. When Jesus finished telling this story, he asked the lawyer, which one of these three men acted like a neighbor to the man who was beat up? Which one was a neighbor? What do you think? The enemy. The guy that was the enemy, the Samaritan. Yeah. And the lawyer said, the one who showed kindness. And Jesus said, yes, go and do the same. How many of you are ready to tend to the wounds of your enemies? Just wondering. All right. So let's keep that story in mind. And now we're going to build a bridge and sing you guys to class. Are you ready to go to class? Yeah. This is the best part because you get to go under the tunnel. So let us make it for you. Thanks for coming today, you guys. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Thank you.
You remember yesterday, Nathan?
Did Mary know that the one she carried would ferry the sun across the lands and hearts of the turning earth? That he would find his place in the pages of myth with Mithras and Horus and Apollo, these stewards of the solar chalice? And in his life and death and rising from, so bring that sun into death's dark domain, ridding it of the shadows that cloak us all in mortalizing shrouds. From my vantage outside Christendom, I see in Christ a thread that by its winding binds man and divine, a conduit of consciousness, a connection between us in this place of pending inevitability and that which moves in great waves of light and joy beyond. And in the resurrection, I glimpse a reflection of ways I've come back to life myself after my own days in the underworld of doldrums and despair, persecuted by pandemics and rabid news and the power once held by Pontius Pilate, now, in our day, wielded by Zuckerberg, Musk, and Buffett. Mulling this over, I think of the rotifer and its natural lesson in revival, a minuscule animal small enough to require a lens to prove its existence, whose magic trick of anhydrobiosis requires but a drop of water to bring its dried husk of a body back to thrumming life. Taking its lead, I'll resurrect myself through rehydration. I'll take great gulps of loving community and family, a truly healing tonic. I'll bathe in walks in the woods among my allies and lands of great beauty. I'll splash around in music and poetry, giddy with the delight of insight and serendipity. And I'll sip at calm moments of breath and ritual at each breaking of the dawn. With this, I'll roll away that darkened stone from the tomb, which is my heart, and find shining from inside great waves of light in the rapturous return of joy. And now we light this chalice for all the forms of resurrection.
That was a beautiful poem that Clay wrote, wasn't it? Thank you.
Yes.
So each week, from your support and the work of this congregation, we support all of the ways that we may impact the values and live our values in the world through your generosity. Excuse me, through your generosity. In addition to supporting this church, your donations also support a local nonprofit organization helping us to make a difference beyond our walls. So for the next 3 months, half of our plate will be going to support the Heart J Center for Experiential Learning. And the Heart J Center for Experiential Learning offers outdoor experiences and hands-on classes based at Sylvandale Guest Ranch in the foothills of West Loveland. Heart J works with schools from across northern Colorado, excuse me, yes, they work with schools from across northern Colorado, current and retired military, first responders, healthcare workers, teachers, and many others. So please give generously, and thank you. Feels like Easter. I love that song. So today, as in every week, we honor the joys and sorrows that are happening in each other's lives. And today is a special focus, though. I would like to invite each of you to find someone around you, preferably somebody you don't already know, if you would, and share with them what is bringing you back to life. Or what would you like to be happening that brings you back to life? Now, I have to say that Min Neal gave me this idea. I know, because she sent me a beautiful picture of her cat. And she said that my little kitty, Nia, is bringing me back to life. She is resurrecting me. Isn't that beautiful? I'm so glad, Nim. So let's take a few moments and just share what's bringing you back to life and what is making you feel alive again, or what feeds you and brings you to life.
It's a beautiful cat.
We're on holy ground, right where we are. We're on holy ground, under the shining star. We're on holy ground, when we reach for each other with our hearts. We're on holy ground. We're on holy ground, right where we are. We're on holy ground, under the shining star. We're on holy ground, when we reach for each other with our hearts. We're on holy ground. Thank you. I invite you now to join me in a brief meditation as we turn inward. Let's all take a breath together, shall we? And let it go. Maybe closing your eyes, turning inward. Let's take another breath in. And let it go. Today, just take a moment to tune in to the light that is within you. The light that is you. That spark of divine, unique beauty. Tune in to the light of those around you that grace you from all of your friends and beloved people. Feel the blessing of this light. Feel the flow, the rays of the sun outside and the rays of the sun within, bringing you back to life, energizing and soothing and healing and blessing. Just feel that. Yes, all the difficulties of our lives remain, but there is always this. Always this. And it is amplified by all those around you, and you amplify their light. This light is our resistance to all that dims the world, that brings us down. So protect your light. Sustain your light in every way you can. All the ways that bring you back to life. All the ways that fill you with light and love and joy as an act of resistance to the difficulties. As the African American spiritual reminds us, keep the lamp of your heart burning brightly. Protect the wick and trim it. Take care of this light and keep it burning. Don't get weary, my friends, for the light combined with the light of each other always holds within it hope. Hope and healing. May it be so. Amen. We are so blessed to have this choir. Mm-mm-mm. You know, let's give them a round of applause. Can we just do that? Yeah. I don't know about you, but I feel lighter already. That infused me with a great deal of light. And that was an African American spiritual. And it was songs like that that helped them get through, that helped them find their light, that helped them sustain them through the worst that we cannot even imagine. So, my friends, let's talk about heaven and hell today, shall we? So when we talk about heaven and hell, let's start with a story that's a Zen story, a Buddhist Zen story, as told by the teacher Jack Kornfield. There was this big, tough samurai warrior who once went to see this little monk. And he said, "Monk," in this voice accustomed to instant obedience, "Monk, tell me about heaven and hell." And this monk looked up at this mighty warrior and replied in utter disdain, "Teach you about heaven and hell? I couldn't teach you anything. You're dirty. You smell. Your blade is rusty. You're a disgrace, an embarrassment to the samurai class. Get out of my sight. I can't stand you." And the samurai was furious. He shook and he got all red in the face and he was speechless with rage. And he pulled out his sword. He was left-handed. He pulled out his sword and he raised it above him, preparing to slay the monk. And the monk softly said, "That's hell. That's hell." And the samurai, who's just moments from killing this guy, was overwhelmed. Overwhelmed. And the compassion and the surrender of this little man who had offered his life to give this teaching to show him hell. He slowly put his sword away and filled with gratitude and suddenly peaceful. And the monk said, "And that's heaven." And that's heaven. The great early 20th century Universalist minister, before they dated for about 150 years. I don't know if you know that. The Unitarians and the Universalists. So the great early 20th century Universalist minister, theologian and activist, Reverend Dr. Clarence R. Skinner, explains a new perspective of universalism. This is 1910s even. The dominant motive is no longer to escape from earthly existence, but to make earthly existence as abundant and happy as it can be made. Modern religion must glorify, spiritualize, and sanctify the world. And another Universalist minister who was a contemporary of his, Henry Clay Ledyard, also said, "The mission of the Universalist Church has been a double one. First, to controvert the one-time prevalent idea of an endless hell. This part of the mission has been practically accomplished. But the second, more important one awaits fulfillment. A fight which shall continue until the real, actual hells before our very eyes are destroyed." And playing off of last week's service, let's see what Jesus had to say from the Aramaic translations. You see, the concept, it might come as a surprise. You're used to that now. The concept of an afterlife in the language of Aramaic is completely foreign. Aramaic scholars and other early Christian scholars are convinced that Jesus perceived heaven and hell as states of mind on the earth in the present moment. It was actually Pope Urban II in 1095 who brought about the idea of an afterlife that we wanted to try to get to, called heaven or hell, so that he could get people to go on crusades, just so you know. I know. So redemption for Jesus and resurrection out of hell and into heaven, if it can happen, must happen in the here and now on this earth in the present moment. So what is this modern day hell that we might know so well? Like the ghost of Easter present, let us look in on hell, on our world. We are living in a world that seems to be disintegrating all around us. We know this, and we are being manipulated by forces that benefit from all of our diversion and division. Both. I didn't mean to say diversion, but both. We know this. So the greatest act of resistance that any of us can make are to resist the narratives of negativity and hate, no matter where it comes from. If someone is spreading negativity and hate, wonder. Turn to wonder and ask, what is going on here? And the story of the Good Samaritan. So we all want to see ourselves as the Good Samaritan. At least I do. Do you too, I'm assuming? Yeah, we want to be the good guys in this story. The good guy that saves the poor person who is victimized by thugs. But this story is too simple to be real. Once again, what if that victim was wearing a MAGA t-shirt? You know, Make America Great Again? Or an anti-gay t-shirt? Something that was very different than your values. Would you help them? Would you help them? What if this person was drunk or high? It's easy to condemn them. What if they were a person of color? Black, indigenous person of color. You know, the research tells us that racial bias programming that we have within us would make each and every one of us less likely to help this dying person. Now, I don't know about you, but this makes me squirm. Told you I'd be squirming. But these are the things we need to wrestle with, because here is the key question. How would you feel? Just put yourself in this position. How would you feel when you transcend all of those judgments and feelings that just came up for you? You know, like that samurai warrior, bringing out your sword, man. Whew. If you were able to transcend that and see that that was hell, and instead befriend this person and save their life through your kindness and compassion, how does that feel? Brilliant. Isn't that just like incredible feeling? Hell just became heaven right there in that moment. And what if you were the dying person and someone who you have been programmed to dislike, mistrust, and even hate offered to help you? How would you feel when you are expecting to be hated? And instead, the person you thought was your enemy saved your life. How would you feel towards them? Is it hard to put yourself in those shoes? It's like, those are the bonds that change and transform us. One of Jesus's great teachings was to love your neighbor as yourself and to love your enemies. When we truly look at what he was trying to teach, I think he was teaching how to bring heaven onto earth in the present moment. That's what he was up to, in my humble opinion. Now, just to back this up though, here are a few translations from the Aramaic, a few lines from the Aramaic translations that say about this particular passage, love your neighbor as yourself and also love your enemies. Says, from the deepest part of yourself, let love be born. Let love be born. Let this come from your whole heart. The center of your life, your passion, your courage, your audacity. From this, self-liberate your whole energy and life force to flood your entire grasping mind with love. Whoa, can we just do that? Wow. This is the most important command. Doing just that. Flooding your senses with love. The first creative movement that empowers all others. And he goes on to say, from a hidden place then, unite with your enemies from the inside and fill the inner void that makes them fall out of rhythm with you. You're out of rhythm with your enemies. We can't seem to walk together. Bring yourself back into rhythm with them, within the movements that work with their movements, creating life from dust. This is the kind of love that creates something new. Acting from this place and from this perspective, acting outside the norms and expectations of our hellacious culture, has the potential to bring real, lasting, and meaningful healing into the world. And don't we need it? I mean, I look at Skinner talking back over 100 years ago. It's like, okay, but that was just peanuts compared to what we're facing. Wouldn't you agree? It's like the stakes have gotten so high, we've got to get it together. We've got to figure this out. We can't pretend any longer. So this powerful love that Jesus is talking about is like a magic that breaks through this dark spell of illusion and separation. This love forms a bond that transforms each other and the world. So I want to tell you about a woman named Megan Phelps Roper. She is an American political activist who is formally a member of and spokesperson for the Westboro Baptist Church, which, in case you don't know, is a Calvinist Christian sect categorized by the Southern Poverty Law as a hate group, rightfully so, I must say. I've been to two funerals where we created a human barrier to protect the people experiencing the funeral, to keep the Westboro Baptist Church away. Her grandfather is the church's founder, Fred Phelps, As a child, she participated in the church's pickets against homosexuality, the American response to the September 11th terrorist attack, and the funerals of soldiers who died in the war in Afghanistan and the war in Iraq. They also protested at funerals for children that were killed at Sandy Hook. You're getting the picture. Megan left the church when she began to have her doubts about their interpretation of the Bible. As she explained, she was used to being hated and expected it. Sure, bring it on. Now we get it all the time. The hatred from other people only validated their beliefs. But it was the people who were kind to her and compassionate with her, while also being honest to help her see the harm that she and her church were doing, that finally got through to her. It was the people who had the compassion and the courage to have these conversations who transformed her life and brought her out of the hell she was living in and helped her find a new life. So, you probably don't need me to ask you, but how do we do this with the people around us? Yelling and screaming at them is not doing it. It's just matching their energy with the same energy. Well, let's turn to Buddhism for a cue. How about a clue? So, breaking the spell, the Buddhist style from Pema Chodron. Now, Pema Chodron, the great Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhist nun and teacher, teaches about the Lojong teachings, in case you're interested. And this particular Lojong teaching is called Break the Spell. No, I'm sorry, it is called Drive All Blames into One. They're so graphic. Drive all blames into one. This is advice on how to work with your fellow beings. Everyone is looking for someone to blame, and therefore aggression and neurosis keep expanding. Anybody ever experience this? See this happen? Instead, pause and look at what's happening within you. When you hold on tightly to your own view of what they did, you get hooked. So hooked. Your own self-righteousness causes you to get all worked up and to suffer. So work on cooling that reactivity rather than escalating it. This approach reduces suffering, yours and everyone else's. Hell turned into heaven. Right there. Now, as important as this work is, it isn't enough to just bring the resurrection of ourselves or of the world. We need to find ways to live in states of heaven, live in a state of joy. Whenever we can and wherever we can, in the midst of all of our pain and our suffering, because it is so easy to get attached to our pain and suffering, just like Pema Chodron was talking about. But there's always something else underneath all that. People that suffer deeply, in slavery, in concentration camps, they teach us you can still find joy. Now, I'm not talking about fake happiness here. I'm talking about true joy, that deep down interconnectedness with all of life, the joy that sees and feels beauty that surrounds us every moment of every day. Take a breath. You were just granted a few more minutes of life. Take another breath. Are you grateful? Is it beautiful? Is it miraculous? Joy is resistance in this downward pull, and it is counterculture. But it is also how we feed and nourish and encourage each other and ourselves. It is how we rise. Excuse me. Resurrecting ourselves and all those around us. I better take a drink of water. Thank you. Good timing. Now, if you want to learn more about how to fill yourself with joy, and in the process, experience joy, watch the movie Mission Joy, Finding Happiness in Troubled Times. It is a beautiful documentary about the friendship between the Dalai Lama and the Archbishop Desmond Tutu. They're crying and laughing all the time together. Their hearts are breaking, and they're laughing and joking. They model well for us. And it's on Netflix. I wish I could show it to you right now. But talking about joy brings me to one of my all-time favorite pieces of music, Ode to Joy by Ludwig van Beethoven. Now, I came across a great article by Maria Popova on her blog, The Marginalinian, something like that. And she tells us that as a teenager, Beethoven had fallen under the spell of transcendental idealism. So, in case you didn't know, he was living, he died in 1827. So he was a teenager in the late 1700s. Give you a sense. So the French Revolution, this was pre-French Revolution, but it was American Revolution. So he was really taken by the ideas of enlightenment, and ideas permeated the poetry of Friedrich Schiller. Schiller's Ode to Joy was at heart an ode to freedom, a blazing manifesto for the enlightenment and ethos that if freedom, justice, and human happiness are placed at the center of life and made its primary devotion, sound familiar? Politically, personally, then peace and kindness would envelope humankind as an inevitable consequence. Is that not what we've been talking about? Ode to Joy would distill the transcendent torment of Beethoven's creative life and how to integrate his rage and redemption and the solace of poetry with his own poetic fury as a force of beauty, of vitality, and meaning. How to turn human darkness, hell, that he had witnessed and suffered into something incandescent and something superhuman, heaven. Here is the unassailable message of Ode to Joy, that it was a clarion call to humanity to discard all the false gods that had fueled a century of unremitting wars and millennia of inequality. The divisions of nation and rank and the oppressions of dogma and tradition, and band together in universal sympathy and solidarity. She goes on to say, but I suspect Beethoven's stubborn sacred point, the reason he never gave up on Schiller's dream, even as he lived through his own nightmares, this unassailable insistence that although the Napoleons and the Putins of the world will rise again and again over the centuries, they will also fall. Because there is something in us more powerful as long as we continue to place freedom and justice and universal happiness at the center of our commitment to life, even as we move through our own nightmares. Joy, my friends, is resurrection. So let us bring heaven on earth in this moment as we rise in body, voice, and song, joining with Beethoven's glorious Ode to Joy with the English translation of Schiller's original poem. Please join with me in singing Joy Thou Goddess. So this is an excerpt from the manifesto, The Mad Farmer Liberation Front by Wendell Berry.
Go with your love to the fields, lie down in the shade, rest your head in her lap.
Swear allegiance to that which is nighest your thoughts. As soon as the generals and the politicos can predict your motions of your mind, lose it.
Leave it as a sign to mark the false trail, the way you didn't go.
Be like a fox who makes more tracks than is necessary, some in the wrong direction. Practice resurrection. Practice resurrection, my friends. May it be so every day. Amen. Thank you. Okay.
Very nice.
Thank you.